Rabbi.
All right, Boker Tov.
There were 2 volumes of the. Later.
Today's,
Later.
Today's daf is Memhei 45. We pick up in the middle of Mem Daled on the bet from the top third. So we got a little hacking up to do. So let's be focused. It'll be a fun daf. Hopefully it's a quick one. Or so you sell the slave to a non-Jew, so that'll be leading him to not be keeping mitzvot. So you have to buy him back and then free him or give him a writ of freedom if he manages to escape. Or if you sell him to Chutz La'aretz, you have to another Jew to Chutz La'aretz, you have to free him. Now, who's the question here? Who's going to free him? Since they're both Jews, maybe rather than requiring the first master to buy him back, you can require the second master to give him his writ of freedom. Does the second master get his money back? The second master also was party to this inappropriate thing about bringing him to Chutz La'aretz. And again, it is quite strange. Like, okay, so what's the big deal here? Chutz La'aretz, so what? He doesn't get to do, the mitzvah satluis parts, truas and maasros.
Exactly.
So for us, for those of us who live in Chutz La'aretz, and for the Babylonian Talmud or whatever, to see this as a big tragedy, right? To go to Chutz La'aretz is an interesting. It's an interesting thing, right? It's a little cognitive dissonance. And
you
as
can
I
put
said,
a marriage that way.
Well, what?
You can.
I know. So okay, but that was sort of written from the perspective of the Mishnah, which is written in Eretz Yisrael. I'm just saying, right? Looking at it through the lens of the Bavli, you understand it. The other thing to, of course, recognize is what I said before, which is that the desire of Chazal and the takanot that they made to maintain the Jewish presence in the land of Israel, and not just a physical presence, but like a real, like rooted presence in terms of land and cattle and slaves and so on. So anyway, let's take a look. Tanu Rabbanan, rabbis taught. So get the second master to write him a writ, because the second master is a Jew and will hopefully listen to us and write him a writ. And it does not sound like he gets reimbursed. So it sounds like actually all the fault gets placed on the second guy. He's the guy who's living in Chutz La'aretz.
Can't they ever gain the system? Yeah, I wanted to go and say, I never wanted to go, and now I'm going to be free.
One more time?
Can't they ever gain the system?
What do you mean?
He'll say, I never, if he wants to go, then you're not going to, punish the Rabbi. Evan agrees to this.
Oh, so that's a good point. So Tozos asked the question, which is, I don't understand. As soon as the Eved says that he's okay to go to Chutz La'aretz, he loses his right to go free because he's making a free choice. If he says he refuses to go, you can't. This new master can't force him out. So Tozos says, so what's the scenario that you free him, right? If he's not allowed to be forced out, and if he says he wants to go, it's his choice. So what's the scenario? So Tosfos asks that question. So Tosfos goes, well, what we're going to do is we're going to force the master to free him before he even leaves, because we don't want the master to persuade him. Basically, the other saying, I don't want to go. So we're forcing the master to free him because we don't want the master to persuade him to go. So it's a good question, right? Exactly what's the scenario? Tosfos asked that. All right, anyway, let's take a look. The second master has to free him. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Ketzah. Amar Ploni Avdi Machatio Ploni Antuchi. I sold my servant so and so to this Antoki, this guy from Antioch. Lo Yatza, he doesn't go out because he might have originated from Antioch, but maybe he's living in Israel. Well, we'll see about that. Let's find out the specifics. So anyway, this Antioch, this guy from Antioch who's living in Antioch. So Yatza, he goes free because then you sold him to Chutz La'aretz. So it says, but we say the opposite. If you say Stam, I sold him to this Antiochian, he goes free. Presumably he's going to Antioch. If you explicitly know that this guy's living in Israel, this Antiochian who has an apartment in Lod, in that case, Lo Yatza, he doesn't go. So the question is, which is the default? If you know the guy's living in Chutz La'aretz, he goes free. If you know he's living in Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't matter where he originates from. Let's say you know he's from Chutz La'aretz, but you don't know the specifics. Do you assume he's going to Chutz La'aretz, or do you assume he's staying in Israel? So the Gemara says, Lo kasha. Had Islay base of Eretz Yisrael, had the Islay ushpiz of Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara doesn't really address what happens if you don't know the specifics. It says, if you know this Antochian has a house in Israel, then then he doesn't go free.
Even if he sells a house in Antioch.
Well, presumably, even if he also has a house in Antioch, which is a good question, right? But maybe now he's living in Israel. He hasn't explicitly told you his plans are to go back. So that's good enough to assume he's staying in Israel. If you know he's only here renting a room and he's in a hotel, then he goes free. And what about if you don't know any of those details? You met the guy in the marketplace. You didn't ask any of those details. You don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I guess you would ask the guy. Anyway, it's the second master that has to free him. The whole thing is very curious. If it's the second master that has to free him, just figure out, is the second master living in Israel or is he living in Chutz La'aretz? Anyway.
So it doesn't make sense if he splits his time, like, you know.
Yeah, so that would be a good time. If Lamaisa he splits his time, how would we deal with it? Not here. If from here it sounds like he wouldn't go free if Lamaisa he split his time. Okay, by Rabbi Yirmiyah, Ben Bavel Shanasa Isha. Now we intersect with cases of husband and wife. Get us back a little bit to Gittin. Okay, so somebody who's living in Bavel who marries a woman, Shanasa Isha Beretz Yisrael in Israel. Now, and there, as Michael already alluded to, right, you can't force your wife to go with you back to Chutz La'aretz. And the same way you can't force your slaves to go with you to Chutz La'aretz, which makes this whole thing very curious. Anyway, so he married this woman in Eretz Yisrael, and she brought into the marriage, to the dowry, these slaves, female and male slaves. And this was not Nichse Milo, where she retained titles, and she just got the use of it. This was Nichse Tzon Barzel, where he actually assumed the title and the ownership of it. The only halacha is that if he divorces her, he gives them back to her. But right now he fully owns them. Okay, so is that like a sale? She brought this into the marriage, the ownership transferred to him. He's planning on moving to Bavel, so that's like selling them to Eretz Yisrael, to Chutz La'aretz, and now he should have to free them. Okay, so V'daito Lachzor now. V'daito Lachzor, and his plan is to go back to Bavel. Okay, so she transferred ownership to a man who's now going to bring them to Bavel. So what's the halacha? So should that be like selling them to Chutz La'aretz? So now we can ask this question whether you say he's right or she's right. Now he's right or she's right about what? So the question happens, let's say at the time of divorce, my wife wants back her Nichse Tzon Barzel. She wants back her slaves, which I actually assumed title of. What we did is we figured out at the time of the marriage, she brought them in on her dowry. There was $10,000. I write, you brought in these slaves in your dowry of the value of $10,000. So we wrote that in the Ksuva. Okay, now I'm divorcing her. So she is entitled, even if the slaves all died or whatever happened to them, I took in property worth $10,000 that I took title over. She's entitled to $10,000 now that I'm divorcing her. Okay, to take her dowry back. Let's say, however, the slaves are alive and healthy and good, and she says, I don't want the $10,000. I want my slaves back. Right. Okay. Do I say, I'm sorry, they became mine. All I owed you was money. Right? Or do we say, no, she has a right to demand them back, to demand the property back if she wants.
So that's a Nichse Tzon Barzel question in general.
So how would that play out here? Because here the question is, when she brings them into her husband and he takes possession of them, to what degree has she sold them, given them to the husband? We might be able to assess that based on if they get divorced, if she's entitled to take them back. If she's entitled to take them back at the time of divorce, maybe they're not considered fully to have been sold to the husband.
And especially even if you say generally it's with him, you can say this case is different because you take them out of Eretz Yisrael. I may not say so much.
Right. Well, that's why it says. So you can ask it either way. Okay. Even if basically she's entitled to take them back out of the marriage, do we say that it's not like she fully sold them, therefore they don't go free? Do we say it doesn't matter. It's true, like maybe at the time of divorce she'll take them back, but right now, for the next 20 years, he has the right to use them and get their benefit of them and all of that. So that's enough. He can, schlep them with him to Israel, to Chutz La'aretz. That's enough to say that they should go free, that they're sold to Chutz La'aretz. That's one direction.
That they're his.
They're his. Or do we say, or we can ask a question, even if he has the right to not give back the slaves. Or do we say that if he can keep the slaves, he doesn't have to give them back, even at divorce? Obviously, they're his, and then it's a sale, and then they go free. Or do we say, since he doesn't own them for their body, they're like hers. Take you. Now the question is, what do you mean he doesn't own them for their body? He actually took possession of them at the time of the marriage. He's never going to give them back. He's only going to give back their value. So that's a very strange sense that there's not. So Rashi says, the first line of Rashi, the Mayaso Megarish law Hadri law. They go back to her. But they don't go back to her. We're saying Adini Mo, that he can basically say, I'm just giving you their value. So I don't really understand, I have to say, this side of the question.
Why? It's like a rental.
But it's not. He never gives back. He can insist on getting the slaves back if she doesn't get them back. He only gives back their value. So the fact that he would have to, in the end, pay for their value means that they're not his. It's like I bought something and I never paid for it. And I'll pay for it. It's now a gift. And if in the end something happens, it'll have been a sale. But
Very
either way, I'm taking full possession of it.
Could she have written into the ketubah that legufam, I'm getting them back in the out of the
Maybe.
divorce?
I don't know what happened if she would explicitly stipulate. But
Okay.
we're not talking about that case. I don't really understand
there-
this. Yeah.
Isn't there something to
Not
her
yet.
advantage?
Yeah.
That, regardless of what happens to that
Yes,
property.
yes.
he's
The
going
fact
to
that
have to pay for
their
that?
value is assessed, and that's why they're called Son Barzel. They are protected assets.
Right.
She is ensured that she will get their full value back. The question is, let's say she wants them themselves, right? And let's say the value goes up, right? So,
But could you maybe say that she forfeited that when she took the security?
yes, you could, and that's exactly the question of Hadini Man, Hadini Mo. That's exactly that question.
Very
Okay.
interesting question.
I'm a Rabbi Avo. Suddenly, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan taught me, Eved Sheyatza Acha Rabo Surya. The Eved followed his master to Surya, and Surya is like this area like this Syria probably or something. There, those areas around Israel, which were conquered by David HaMelech, that had like this quasi Eretz Yisrael status. Okay. And his master sold, and he goes free because being sold to Surya. If you remember, we said this way in the first parak, right? He's Yatzal L'Chayvus. It's like Chutz La'aretz. Okay, so therefore, the chiddush is not just if you sell him to Surya he goes free, but that even though he went willingly to Surya, you don't say, well, you already made that choice yourself. Right? You can't blame the master. No, nevertheless, he goes free. The question is, well, when he went to Surya, was he going to settle there or were they just going on a trip, right? That would depend on, right? Because the question is, did the Eved choose on his own to live in Surya? If they were just going for a trip, then you can't blame the Eved for having been in Surya. So it says, when he went to Surya, the slave lost his right. Like we just said, if the master was going just on a trip and he took a slave with him, then the slave didn't lose any rights. I wasn't planning on leaving Eretz Yisrael. We were just going on a trip, and then my master sold me to Surya. He sold me to Chutz La'aretz. He assigned my state to Chutz La'aretz. Okay, my fate. Whereas if they were planning to moving to Surya and the Eved willingly went, then it's the Eved's own fault. He doesn't go free now that he's sold. Okay,
Right, but
So
you have to know specifically that he went for free. That he did want to go.
you mean what would be the default if the master didn't tell him? If the master
And then he just
whatever.
went.
He just went. I mean, my master's going. I'm going with him. I'm supposed to ask my master what his plans are.
Yeah.
Right. So I would, it's a good question. I don't know. I would assume by default we sort of like it's sort of like the previous customs. What do you do with suffix? I don't know. My gut is that the default is that we would favor the slave, like unless we could prove that he had forfeited his rights. But I don't know.
Meaning like we would assume he didn't want to go.
We would assume that he was not planning on. He didn't like. If you don't know that you're moving there and willingly moving there, you're just following your master, right? I don't know. It's a good question.
Rabbi,
Okay. Yes.
in all these cases,
Interestingly, there's not a lot of responsive literature on this. Yes.
in all these cases, what are we assuming? This is like the rabbinic decision, but in reality, the owner's not going to give this guy up, or he wouldn't have even bought him in the first place. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's right. That's like the irony about it. Like the whole point before about you have to try to buy him back at 10 times the value. Like it's very nice to say we force the master to sell him, but like as you're saying, like anybody knows that if I buy him, I'm going to have to free him. Who's buying him?
Right.
So obviously, I mean, so the one scenario that could work is I bought him in ignorance of the law, and I was informed of the law, and I'm a firm guy, so I'm going to do it, right? But any other scenario, either I'm not buying him, or but maybe that was the point. Good. If this takana is going to mean that you're going to not buy him, then that's exactly what we want, is for you to not buy him. And if you violated and thought you would get away with it, and we can exert some power and control over you, then we're going to do something about it, right? Yeah, but it's an excellent point. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Okay. So the Gemara says, "Vatanya." Okay, contain that. Vatanya didn't teach in the Brisa. Yotze Eved Acha Rabo Surya. An Eved follows his master to Surya. So the Gemara interrupts the Brisa. Yotze. He follows, like he has to follow. Well, Sabi the Lonafik, it's not enough that he should follow, meaning is he required? You cannot force anybody to go out of Israel. Your husband can't force his wife, he can't force his slaves. So what does it mean you have to follow your
That's the end of Ketubah.
Right, exactly. Ella Yatzah. No, what it means is if the slave did follow, the master told him, if the master was planning on returning, Kofinoso, then you force the second guy to free it, because then the slave had not willingly left to resettle outside of Israel. But if the master was not planning on returning, so the slave willingly chose to leave Israel and to settle outside of Israel, then he lost his rights. Ain't Kofinoso, you do not force the second guy to free him. Amar Avana. Shmas minei the Shmuel. I heard from Shmuel Tarki two rulings. Chadahach, one this ruling about like that
Forcing the slave,
forcing whatever, yes, freeing the slave. The idach and the other the itma. Hamoches adeo b'shnas hayovel. If somebody sold a field during Yovel, on Yovel the field's return. Let's say you tried to sell a field during the Shemitah year. Atzma. Rav Amar mechura v'yotzah. The sale goes through, and then a second later it reverts. Okay, it was a good sale, and then it goes back to the original owner. The nafkamina is, well, one nafkamina is you keep the money because it was a good sale. The other nafkamina is that if you can sell metaltalin through a kinyan karka. So if I sell you by taking possession of my field here, I'm also selling you my car and my goats or whatever.
So the field will go back to the guy, but you get to keep the car.
You keep the car and the goats because that act of kinyan on the karka worked for other things. So Rav said it was a legitimate act of kinyan, and then it just goes back. But Shmuel Amar ein mechura kol ikar. No. The sale doesn't go through. Okay, now. So those are the two cases where one is you sold a slave to Chutz La'aretz, and the other is you sold a field during Yovel. 1 minute. Bechada had bisvini. In one case, the sale goes through, but it gets reversed. Ubechada lo had bisvini. And the other, it doesn't get reversed. Meaning the I'm sorry. Had bisvini means 1 minute.
The sale goes
No.
back.
No. Meaning the sale goes back. No, I missaid that. Meaning the money goes back to the purchaser. In one case, the money goes back to the purchaser, and in the other case, the money does not go back. So here we're finally asking the question, right? I went ahead and I bought this slave, and I'm going to have to free him. Okay, do I get my money back? That's a good question, right? So he says you have these two cases. I bought my slave, I have to free him. Do I get my money back? Okay, and the other question is, I sold this field during the Yovel, right? Or I bought this field during the Yovel, and it wasn't good. Do I get my money back? So those are the two cases. And in one case, Shmuel says you get your money back. And one case he says you don't. Now, it should seem pretty obvious which is which. Because in the one case, Shmuel says the sale didn't go through by the field. So if the sale didn't go through, I get my money back. In the other case, Shmuel says I, the second master, or the Breita says, have to free him. So if I, the second master, have to free him, obviously the sale went through. So I don't get my money back, and now I have to free him. And that's what the Gemara is going to conclude.
Well, but
why there was a doubt is not so.
But what I would say is this: in other words, the reason why I would have to free him is because like it seems like he was purchased and he's a slave, and so people are going to think he's a slave. So therefore, I have to free him. Just so there'll be no doubts. In terms of
maybe, but then the first master would also have to free him.
But what I'm saying is though, I find this very curious because let's say for instance, I'm going to buy real estate, right? So sometimes, you kind of have to do like a blind shop because people don't know, the people working there don't know it's being sold. Right. So, so you go and you look at it and, whatever, you can't really talk to the people. Right. So I would think that sometimes that might be the case of the slave. In other words, so I'm asking this guy, he wanted to go. So it turns out they didn't want to go. Like, why should I be penalized? Because this guy's sort of lying to me. I may not even have an opportunity to ask the slave. So I'm assuming this guy's legitimate. I see him over here.
So you're dealing with the case. So what's confusing you is you're dealing with the immediately previous case, which was the question of whether the slave willingly went or not. We're not dealing with that case. We're dealing with a simple case that I sold a slave to Chutz La'aretz. You're living in Chutz La'aretz. I'm living in Israel. I'm selling my slave.
I know you live in Israel.
And I live in Israel. Everybody knows everything. All right. And the halacha is you're going to be forced to free him. Can you get your money back now? Okay. So the answer should be obvious. Of course not. It's clear the sale went through because you're forced to free him. And you did the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing too. I sold him. You did the wrong thing. You bought him. And you don't get your money back. So let's see. Let's just get through this tomorrow, okay? And then he goes, I'm Rav Yosef. So below Yadana, and I don't know. Which one do you get your money back? Which one don't you? I'm Rav Yosef. Next year on. Let's figure this out ourselves. Thank you very much. The second master is the one who frees him. Okay, Shema Mina, Kanye Rabo Sheni. The second master purchased him, but Lo Adrizvini, he doesn't get his money back. He's the one that loses out, and he has to free him. Okay, and when the case by Shemitah, Shmuel is saying the sale didn't go through, and the money goes back. Obviously, if the sale doesn't go through, the money goes back. So isn't that pretty obvious? I mean, it's obvious from both cases. The phrase is one is the sale didn't go through, and the frame in the other is the second master has to free him. So Ravanan, Braisalo Shmiele. Okay, and Ravanan, so how did Ravanan not know this? Number one is he didn't know the Braita that says the second master freed him. So maybe that's true. From the Mishnah, you might get the impression that the first master frees him. Okay, you could have easily read our Mishnah that if you sold him to Chutz La'aretz, the sale didn't go through and you have to free him. So from the Mishnah, it's not clear. So number one, that's a possible read. And how could you say by Shemitah, if I sell it, the money doesn't go back? How could that have been? Shmuel said the sale didn't go through. The Imi de Shmuel, and if it's Shmuel's teaching about that on Shemitah, the sale doesn't go through. I know that the sale didn't go through, but that doesn't necessarily mean the money goes back. How could the sale not go through and the money not go back? Maybe I should say, look, you knew what you were doing. You knew the sale wouldn't go through. You went through this little play anyway. You went through you went through the motions. So why did you give him money if you knew the sale wouldn't go through? It must be that the money was really just a gift. Maybe that was your way. He wouldn't accept a gift from you, so you did this little fake sale of land. Who knows why? Because you gave him money at a time when the sale wouldn't go through. Let's consider that a gift, and the money won't go back. Let's just finish it. Like what happens if you give your sister money to marry her? The itma, you give your sister a diamond ring and you say, Rav Amar Moschos, and you get your diamond ring back. No, it's a gift. Okay, anyway, so therefore, because you can't marry your sister, so therefore we interpret it as a gift. So the fact that Shmuel said when you sell a field on Shemitah, if the sale doesn't go through, does not prove that the money goes back. It would have been possible to interpret that case and say the money is a gift. But we don't. In that case, the sale doesn't go through, the money goes back. Now, in our case, when you sell your slave to Chutz La'aretz, if you just had the Mishnah, you could easily have read it, that the sale didn't go through and the first master has to free him. We find out from the Breita, not that way, that the sale did go through and that, the sale did go through and the second master has to free him. And it's the second guy who loses out his money. So now that prompts the Gemara to say, why is the second guy the one who loses out? Right? Why should the buyer lose out? Why don't we say, no, it didn't go through and the first guy has to
So it's keeping both the same.
What?
Keeping both the same.
What's both? You mean like the Shemitah case?
Yeah,
but it's also, but here it's even, but forget the Shemitah parallel. It's just more like an ethical question, like who is the right one that has to be punished here, right? Because when I sold the field in Chutz La'aretz, I got my money. You lost your. Why should right? So if the sale goes through, it doesn't go through, and who frees him is the question of who is the one that is being fined, who is the one that is being punished. So that's now the question. So let's take a look. So the Gemara says, why do we say if the sale goes through and the second master has to free him and he loses out his money? Why does the purchaser is the one who's fined? He didn't say the Let's find the seller and say that the sale didn't go through and the seller has to free him. Amalei, lav achbara ganav elachur ganav. It's not the weasel that steals; it's the hole that steals.
Not the hole. It wouldn't be a weasel.
Yeah, right. You provided the opportunity. Could I finish reading the Gemara? Okay, we're enjoying this. I appreciate it. Amalei, lav achbara choraminale. If it wasn't for the weasel or whatever, the hole wouldn't do anything. The hole doesn't do anything. The weasel's the ganav. He's the initiator, right? And it's so fine. He needs the opportunity, but he's still the initiator. Now, it's funny to say it that way by a sale because, I think somehow it's an interesting question about the way we use verbs, right? Like somehow hamocher sounds like he's the initiator. But that doesn't mean that's true at all, right? What makes you think
approach you,
right? What makes you think that the person who's initiating, I could be the one looking around for good deals with slaves. I could be the initiator. I could pressure you to sell, right? The very fact that it looked, besides the general question, right? If the Gemara has this, I don't know, I'm actually a burglar, and you purchase my stolen goods. So clearly there, I'm the one doing something wrong. You're providing me the opportunity to make a profit. If you didn't give me that opportunity, I wouldn't steal anything. But nevertheless, I'm clearly the one doing something wrong, and you're just the opportunity. I'm the one doing something wrong. But here it's strange that we look at the seller as the one doing something wrong, and the buyer as providing him the opportunity. Because how do you know the buyer isn't the one that's coming and approaching this guy and saying, please sell me your slave? And he's not the one that's initiating.
But he knows he's not supposed to sell it.
Both sides are supposed to know. Anyway, it's interesting that we look at the seller. I guess he's my slave, and I'm doing something to him. I'm ultimately the one that's doing something to my slave. I'm right now the one who owns it. Anyway, so if we look at the seller as the one who's like the one transgressing and the buyer as the one who's providing the opportunity, then it really is a good question. Why put more of the punishment on the one who's providing the opportunity? And let's see what the Gemara's answer is.
He's doing it in bad faith.
Everybody's doing it in bad faith.
Well, you don't know that.
Nobody. We don't know who knows who's doing something wrong.
Well, the guy who owns the slave in Israel knows that he's doing it in bad faith. How does he know? Because there's a rule that he can't do it.
So the buyer also knows that rule.
What does he?
But does the seller?
Oh,
The same way
does
the
the
buyer
seller
could be
know?
ignorant, the seller could be ignorant.
But then
You don't know who's ignorant
is
here.
no.
Okay, so
defense,
that's
right?
true by both sides. Why are you assuming the buyer is the one who knows the rules and not the seller?
Oh, but the question then is who is initiating.
I'm-
In other words, you
But
can't.
why is the buyer why is the seller the initiator? Maybe the buyer's the initiator.
The
Okay.
analogy here is like.
So you really have to find all this out.
Right.
But in other words, there shouldn't be one.
When I
there
go
shouldn't be an
ahead and I
answer.
go to Amazon and
There
I
should be an
buy all
answer.
this stuff that's not
Right.
good for me.
Right.
Okay. Who's the initiator and who's providing the opportunity? I'm the initiator. They're providing the opportunity, right?
So is
So
there
is the
some-
buyer the initiator or the
is there
seller?
some-
You're
is there
saying
some
you can't
way-
have a rule then. You got to look at each case. and
Right.
decide
Is there
who's
some
the
way to
initiator.
investigate
know, but
before
so-
making the penalty?
No. So why we made a flat decision that we're punishing the buyer? Why are we making
That's
that
what's
decision?
being challenged.
Because that's
That's
what
what's
it
being
is.
challenged.
I
All
agree.
right.
I
He
agree.
lives in Chutzpah. That's the answer.
Okay,
So
so
now
the
we
answer
can-
is, so let's see can we see the answer? Amalei, okay, ilav achbar achor minale, mistavra hecha the ika isura hasam kansina. So where the isser is, that's where we find, meaning that you're the one who's living in Chutz La'aretz, you're the problematic situation. We're not thrilled with the fact that you're living in Chutz La'aretz in general. You're the one who's bringing him into this problematic situation. So somehow that's the locus of the
you
problem.
steal a short's end, 4 or 5, right? I buy your stolen
Right.
short, right? But you're the one that's paid for it.
Exactly. Anyway, so
It
somehow
is-
that is seen as the locus of the problem because Chutz La'aretz is the problem. It's a very interesting sort of, I think, moral type of whatever justice type of question.
I just want to clarify one small point. What would be the motive in the case of the Yovel sale of the field? If it's not a metalton, agav karka, like why would I even sell
No
it?
good reason.
Like
Unless you
a
were
gift,
ignorant.
the same thing like it
It
would be
have
like
to
the
be either
gift, like the
either
diamond
a
ring
fake
to the
way to give
sister.
a gift, or you were ignorant. Why would you be Makadish your sister, right? I mean, they had a fun time exploring these. I don't know if there was always good reasons why people
For
would do that.
motivation, yeah.
Right. You know my joke about that whole thing about like why are you selling it? It's the money goes back. So a guy comes to somebody and says, I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. Really? Brooklyn Bridge? How much? He says, only $1 million. A real wow, $1 million, great. He takes out his checkbook, he says, wait, you got a pen, give him a pen, writes out a check for $1 million, gives it to him. We'll both walk away. So his friend says, what the heck were you doing? You bought a bridge that he doesn't own with money that you don't have. He says, what? And this pen is nothing? So okay, anyway, there you go. That's why you did. Okay, anyway, moving on. All right, so let's see the Gemara. Who of the arach michutz la'aretz la'aretz?
Close your bank account.
Okay, so there was a slave. Now you're going to appreciate this because David, I think you were asking me about whatever happened to the pasuk about the slave that runs away. So we're finally going to deal with that pasuk, right? Who avda the aret michutz la'aretz la'aretz? The slave ran from chutz la'aretz to Eretz Yisrael. Also, Mari Abasra, so the master came running after him to go take him back. Also, they come to Rabbi Ami. He came to Rabbi Ami, the master who came from chutz la'aretz. Amar lei, he said to him, listen, buddy, I'll write you a writ for his value so you can at least not lose out. I don't know. The community would raise the money or something, and you write him a writ of freedom. Okay, the elo, and if you don't agree to that, so at least you're not out any money, so a little incentive. But if you don't agree to that, I will just free him against your will. Tough luck, you're going to be out your money. Okay, so this is the reverse. Not selling him to Chutz La'aretz, you get fined, but coming from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, and we will basically try to pay you back. But if not, we're going tough luck. He's going free because now he's in Eretz Yisrael. So that's clearly a different type of. I mean, it's obviously the flip side of the coin. Okay. Now, what's the basis of that? The Rabbi Achid Rabbi Yoshaya, from the teaching of Rabbi Achid, the son of Rabbi Yoshaya. The Talmud Tana Brisa. Lo yeshvu b'artzecha pen yachtilu aschali. They shall not dwell in your land, the shivas amamim, lest they make you sin against me. Maybe that would be true even if they agreed not to be worship idols. Maybe would they, even if they agreed to convert, would we not be able, or let's say at least keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach? I don't know. Let's say keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Would we not be allowed to keep them in the land? Do not hand back a slave that runs to you from his master. So somehow we are reading that not as about slaves, interestingly, but about a non-Jew who's living in the land of Israel. We're going to read it back as slaves. It's a very forced reading. A non-Jew who's living in the land of Israel who wants to be saved and is running away from their foreign worship, from their avodah zarah, and he's coming to join a monotheistic community. Okay, well, even if he's not converted. Okay,
So don't apply to the slave.
Well, no, wait. This is one drasha. Okay. Maita kanaso. So what do you do with some? Let him dwell among you. So somebody wants to dwell among us and leave his pagan community, even the Shivas Amim, we're allowed to do it. So reading that way has nothing to do with slaves. That has to do with Shivas Amim. A very forced read of the pasuk. Okay, the Kashalei Rabbi Yoshai did not like this read of the pasuk. Hi me'im adonav, who's running away to you from his master. Me'im aviv mibayale, or if you look at the side, me'im elohav mibayale. You're not reading that about a slave and a master. You're reading about somebody either leaving his community or leaving his God and coming to you. Okay, if you want to read it about Shivas Amim, okay, so that's clearly not pshat in the pasuk. Ella, Amar Rabbi Yoshai, here's pshat in the pasuk. It's actually now, why we're not just talking, that's actually literally talking about a runaway slave, I don't know, but we're talking about somebody, we're talking about our Mishnah. It's in the pasuk. Somebody's trying to sell his slaves to chutzlar.
Yeah, that's a pshat.
That's the pshat of the Mishnah. Okay. Asher yinatzel elecha me'ima. Don't hand him over. Lotaske eladonav to the new master. Don't hand him over to the new master. Asher yinatzel elecha. He is trying to take refuge and stay in Israel. Don't hand him over to the new master who's in chutzlar. That's how we're reading it. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look. Because notice it didn't say he ran away. He just said lotaskia. Don't hand him over. So don't hand him over to the new master who brought him in Chutz.
We're saying if we actually have a case of the pasuk where he ran away from someone and someone else.
No, we're going to get there, Michael. It's going to be a third reading. Okay. So that's the way he reads it. Okay. And therefore you don't, and that's the basis of our Mishnah. So his son, Yoshai, didn't like that read. He had a problem. That is seeking refuge to you. It should have been that is like I don't know. Rashi explains the difference here. Because it's not being, rather than reading it that he's seeking refuge with you, he understood it meant that don't hand him over, that he is trying to be taken from you. So if it really meant that he was being sold to Chutzlar, it would have said, don't hand him over that now that he is being attempted to be taken away from you. The sense that he stays by you is only the next pasuk. So anyway, so he says it's not pshat he's being sold to chutzlar. Ella Amar Rabbi Yoshai. So here's what Rabbi Achi says the pasuk was talking about. The case we started with. The Eved, finally, it's a runaway slave. Pshat of the pasuk. The Eved shebarach michutz la'aretz hakasim medaber. So he ran from chutz la'aretz to Eretz Yisrael. So don't hand him back to his master. He's running away from his master, right? He's like trying to save himself from you, coming away, save himself from his master. Don't hand him back, okay? And he stays in the land of Israel. Okay, now, of course, so that's certain pshat of the pasuk is that it's about a runaway slave and don't hand it back. The only thing that it added here is that right now it does say so it does somehow mention the idea of like the benefit being in the land, being in your cities. Okay, so it's but it's still, I don't know if the pshat of the pasuk is that he came from Chutzlar. Okay, but it's reading it. The emphasis is, look, you're coming into the land and they'll stay with you in the land and so on. So they're reading it as a runaway slave, which is pshat, but particularly with the Eretz Yisrael Chutzlar, it's type of an emphasis.
But if he ran away in Eretz Yisrael, we would give him back.
According to that, it would not. Yeah, you would give him back.
Exactly. No, because again, you can see this as being some sort of Simon Legree thing. He's being mistreated. He runs away.
I know. Yeah, I know. But it's totally true. We are reading this pasuk. If a slave runs away from one place in Chutz La'aretz to another place in Chutz La'aretz, from one place in Eretz Yisrael to another place in Eretz Yisrael, you hand it back. It's only because he's coming from Chutz La'aretz. Okay. Tani Ida. We taught another brisa. So basically, somebody bought a slave with the agreement to free him. And so now basically it's saying, look, if you bought him with the agreement to free him, we're not going to hand him over to you, right? Do what you promised. So
meaning then you decided you wanted to keep him as a slave.
Something like that, right? That's the case. He writes, he already wrote him. He didn't just promise. He wrote him a star shikra. He said, when I purchase you, this is your writ of freedom. Okay, and therefore don't allow this guy now to enslave him. Rav Chizda slave ran to the Samaritans. He said to them, give him back to me. They read the pasha like the pshat. Right? Well, we don't give slaves back. He ran away. You don't give a runaway slave back. Now Rashi says that the kutim were in Chutz La'aretz. But even if they were in Eretz Yisrael, whatever, they certainly didn't read it that it's only when it comes from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael. They just read it. Listen, buddy, we don't give slaves back. End of story. Okay, that's the pasuk. You don't give back a runaway slave.
Just to hear Rav Chisda's town was also outside of Israel.
Rashi says. Rav Chisda,
Yeah, but Rav Chisda
Rav Chisda was
Nami
also,
B'Bavel.
right, you're right. Rav Chisda was also in Bavel. Okay, so anyway, so they certainly didn't read it having anything to do with Eretz Yisrael. Right, of course, it's Rav Chisda, right? Okay, it was all, but anyway, but they said, what difference does it make, right? It's all about you don't give back a runaway slave. Shalach lehu, he sent to them, V'chein taseh l'chamaro, v'chein taseh l'simaso, v'chein taseh l'chol v'das achicha. He's my property. Give it back. What do you mean? You're quoting me a pasuk? Don't give back a runaway slave. I'll quote you a pasuk that give back my lost property. Okay. Shalchulei, they sent to him. I don't know why these parentheses take it out. It makes it so much richer with this. Shalchulei, they sent back to him. What do you mean?
Quoting another pasuk.
You're quoting a pasuk property. We have an explicit pasuk that says you don't give back a runaway slave. He said to them, don't you know how to read the pasuk? That's not about a stam runaway slave. That's
a little rabbinic drush on
this. Okay. So that's why. So now the Gemara says, I really don't understand the question. Like, why did they send him like Rabbi Achim Rabbi Yoshaya? What do you mean why he sent it? Because they weren't buying the shot of the pasuk without that.
The Mashmalu cry, so they can
Right.
explain the pasuk.
No, so that's the answer.
That's
The
the
answer is the Mashmalu cry because
They didn't understand the pshat.
yeah, no, but what was the alternative?
Rabbi.
Rashi says he should have sent him like Rebbe. What did Rebbe say? Where was Rebbe? Rebbe was in the beginning here that the slave ran away, and us. Where was Rebbe? What was Rebbe? Rashi says, why wouldn't they not send him like Rebbe? Hold
It
on.
has to do with the kutim, I think, doesn't it? Like who they were.
Yeah, obviously.
Hashtag dekra hachi mashmal hotfei ve'ein einan shomin divrei chachamim.
Amar Rabbi.
Hachi lo salach lo
Rebbe Omer B'Lokech Eved Amanat L'Shachrero. Right. So what do you mean? Why did he not send? I don't understand the question. Why not send to them like Rebbe? He didn't send to them like Rebbe because Rebbe wouldn't defend it. Oh, meaning
Right.
all he had to say was that pasuk doesn't refer to a stam case.
Exactly.
I got it. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Why? All he had
Not
to say
on
that
the authority.
that
of the
pasuk does not mean a stam case of a runaway slave. So so why did he give them the Rebbe Yoshaya's drasha? Give another drasha. And the answer is because Rebbe Yoshaya's drasha is the closest to the pshat of the pasuk. So that at least maybe they could.
Right.
buy.
They won't be convinced by the authority of the chacham,
Right.
just on the grammar.
Now,
of the
even Rabbi
pasuk.
Yoshaya is not the simple pshat. The simple pshat is any runaway slave, but at least this drash is closer to the pshat of the pasuk. Okay. Abaye, so bottom line is the way Chazal read the psukim, you don't have to give back a runaway slave, except in the special case of Chutz La'aretz Yisrael. Abaye irkes lechamra beikutai. Abaye lost a donkey who went to the Samaritans. Not a donkey, a mule. Shalach lehu, he sent to them. Shaduli, send him back to me. Shalach lehu, they sent him. Shalach simano, give us a simon. Shalach lehu, he sent to them. The chivarta krese, he's got a white belly. Shalach lehu, they sent back to me. Lav de nachmeni, if you weren't Nachmeni, which was his name, if you weren't such a renowned person, we would not give him back to you. What, all other mules don't have white bellies? Of course he's got a white belly. What a silly simon. But okay, fine, we'll give him back to you. All right. Like my story about the guy with the umbrella. Right. Okay, let's next Mishnah. All right. Next Mishnah. So we're out of slaves. Okay. It was a really very rich Gemara about slaves, and it ended finally with a pasuk about runaway slaves. Now back to other tikkun olam.
Why is this here about the mule?
Because it's with the kutim and having interaction.
Oh,
with
another
the
thing,
kutim.
interaction with the
Yeah.
kutim.
Right. Ain't putting and
returning things.
also he said, "Give me back my slave. My slave is my lost donkey that went to you, my lost mule." Right. That was the pasuk that was quoted before. Okay. And now we get to some really fascinating tikkun olam, especially if you think about contemporary events. Ain't putting us a shvuyin yesar kadei dmehem. You do not redeem captives more than their value. Now their value is. Their value means who determines the value, because it wasn't blackmail. I mean, it could have been, but the idea is when there's a slave market, now we've been primed with the idea that we're dealing with slaves, right? So if somebody is taken captive, what's their value? How much they go for on the slave market? But they know that this person is worth a lot more to you. This is
Your husband,
somebody's wife or husband or child. So don't pay more than their market value. Why not? That's mitnei tikkun olam. Because that's necessary for the betterment of the world. Not necessary for me, but let's see. We'll see what that is in the Gemara. Okay, exactly. The ein marvichin et hashvuyin, and you don't try to basically to
State
free
operation?
Yeah, exactly. To free captives. To the betterment of the captives themselves. So this is really challenging Gemara about Tikkun Olam. Let's see what the Gemara
Where
says.
else is this Gemara?
It's quoting Ksuvas. Why is it that you don't redeem captives for so much money? Is it because of that it's just too onerous of a demand on the tzibur in terms of the financial cost? Because you don't want to encourage it. Once you start willing to pay ransom and pay, and once you're going to negotiate with terrorists, right, then you're just going to encourage future type of behavior. So you have to deal with this terrible tragedy right now, but it's in the big picture, that's what's necessary. So which one is it? And there's a big nafkamina. The Gemara says Tashma. So Levi Bar Darga, Parke Lebarte, he redeemed his daughter, but Kleser Alfei Din Rezav with 13,000 gold dinare. So clearly it was Yeser Kadei de Mayhem. How do we allow it? Well, if the only cost is the financial cost of the tzibur, we'd allow an individual to do whatever he or she wants. But if it's because of the policy, we cannot do this to encourage future behavior. We should not allow even individuals to act this way. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi, so Rabbi said, Uman Leimalan Debaratzon Chachamim Avid, who told you that was done with the approval of the sages? Maybe not approval, so we don't know. And this became a big issue for the Jews in the Middle Ages. I think people know that it's an issue now, right, to negotiate with terrorists. Well, we say we don't negotiate with terrorists, and then of course we do negotiate with terrorists.
We're to allow the family to do it. We allow a family to do it, but we won't as a government.
Right.
That's also
that's an interesting point. Right. That the policy is as a government as opposed to right. But okay, that's a good point. And also, like people might know, famous Rabbi Rittenberg was held in prison, and he refused to let people redeem him because they were charging like an obscene amount, and he basically ain't voted as a shliach. He refused to let the Jewish community redeem him. And then the sad irony is that he died in prison, and then once he was dead, they basically paid an obscene amount to get back his body, and to bury his body. So, definitely been dealing with these cases. It obviously comes up nowadays in terms of terrorists. And look at Tosos about this issue. Tosos says, a woman was taken captive and they were asking 10 times her value. The first time actually it says he has to redeem.
He's the husband.
Shani Ishto Dahaviki Gufo, Yosemi Pito. Okay, the Hacha. It says even in the Havamina that it was for the betterment of society to not encourage that behavior. Would we say you could not redeem yourself? Like, let's say you could basically transfer funds, right? You have your money, whatever, they took you captive. So certainly we wouldn't say you couldn't save yourself. Whatever the bigger societal issue is, we're not going to do it to the point that you actually have to can't take care of your own immediate self-interest. So once that's true, we're going to let you redeem your wife as well.
Wait, so you are
allowed your daughter.
So you're allowed to pay as much as you want to get yourself out.
To get yourself out and to get your wife out. Whatever the reason is, we're going to obviously make an exception for yourself and for your wife. I don't know. Anyway, but interestingly, but not your daughter. Okay, Rabbi Yoshua ben Chanina de Parke Lutino, another story where a certain young kid was redeemed with a lot of money, and there was by a rabbi. Okay, what about if somebody is very valuable to the community?
So it's not
this is a future prodigy.
Is that what this means?
It was Yosef. No, I don't think that's what it means. I think it means it was Yosef Gedei Demayim, but there was a larger need at stake. It was this a valuable person in the community. He's a prodigy.
But Mamram didn't buy this thing.
I guess not. Inami b'shas korban abayis was shaykh to lo ligru. Okay, that was anyway in a time when anyway they were going to do what they were going to do. They didn't need our encouragement. Okay, so here's really interesting questions. How do you balance this idea of it's going to have a negative impact on the larger community, but how does that constrain my ability to take care of my own interests, right? And when do we allow for certain things or counterbalancing concerns of like this person also, we need this person back. He's our nuclear scientist. If we don't get him back, that also has a big impact on the community. Right, so how do you balance those types of issues? The other really interesting thing about this Gemara is there was a really good article. I don't think some my liberal friends like this article, but it was by what's his name? I can't remember his name. I think it was by Leon Wieseltier. I might be wrong. Anyway, it was called "How to Not Redeem the World," and it was a critique of a book on Tikkun Olam by all of these different Jewish writers that wrote on like every topic under the sun, about Tikkun Olam. And basically it said any single topic you want to write on, you are able to, you find some Torah source and some Jewish source to say, look, this is the right, this liberal, it believes in this liberal cause and it's tikkun olam or whatever. You're able to like cherry pick some sources. It says, and this doesn't really seriously engage this serious way the Torah sources grapple with these issues and really embrace the tensions that are present in the sources. And he brings this sugya, which is about tikkun olam, and he says, sometimes the most immediate feel-good response is not necessarily the best thing for the sort of big picture type of issue, and that liberals have a way, and I'm saying this as a liberal, and believe me, and he says liberals have a way of casting conservatives as uncaring, whereas maybe there's some people that actually do very much care but don't think that the quick fix immediate response is the best way of solving deep systemic problems. And here dafka, the tikkun olam, is to not do anything. The tikkun olam in this case is to not save that person who was taken captive, because that's seen as what's necessary to be done ultimately to deal at a deeper level with the issues. So I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with all of the politics of all the situations, but it raises really important points. Number one, I agree with it. The problem when people basically have already decided what their issue is and then just find the source to support it, sort of cherry pick the sources is a problem rather than really engaging. And one of the beauties of halacha is that halacha really does not just these abstract values, brings them into the real world and grapples with the trade-offs that come about when you have to make real decisions. And there are real costs to certain types of decisions. So it really is fascinating that the tikkun olam here is to not just oh my God, somebody's in trouble, we got to save that person. Actually, the tikkun olam might be to don't do anything. That's the tikkun olam, So it's a challenging idea. Yes.
I feel like this is an exception though in the way that we see human life. No, this is, I think, generally.
Right, of course, generally we do everything. So that's the point. But a serious engagement in tikkun olam makes us think about 1 minute. Don't just immediately go by where your sort of moral, intuition is driving you. Think about the cost. Think about the bigger issues.
Right. I just think my sense is the way we deal with human life normally. We say, don't think about that. One human life. It doesn't matter. Break Shabbos, break whatever.
Right.
We don't do the cost, risk cost, we'll save this person, we'll sacrifice this person, we're more the as we're learning, deontological, one life is worth everything, and this is an exception, it seems like.
Right, but sometimes there is, because sometimes it's if you save this life, then you lose 10 lives, and sometimes you have to make those cheshbonot, and that's part of the point. Sometimes you have to be thinking. Tikkun olam is about thinking about big picture, but so he's not denying that the basic, obviously, some of these basic issues, that's the point, that the values of, sort of the general liberal values about caring for the disenfranchised and the marginalized and valuing life and all those types of things. But then there's sometimes the tikkun olam is about, but thinking about how that's going to play out. It's a challenging point, and I think it's a very legitimate
just
one.
Very quickly, it's assumed that it doesn't say specifically that they're going to kill him if you don't.
Right, but that is true. It doesn't say that, and I think you're right that while in Jewish literature, pidei shvuyim is treated automatically as pikuach nefesh, right, and that gets to Jenna's point that it's human life. But I think probably in most cases it was more about just a life of enslavement. Of Averas, probably Chilul Shabbos and eating treifus and enslavement, but nevertheless, in most cases, and maybe it was depending on the case, it could have also been about sexual abuse, right? But it was not. It was usually not about.
Right. So then
they weren't going to kill you.
So now, if you know that
you were a valuable asset.
So does the calculus change if you know they're going to kill you? In other words, then you can.
Yeah, I don't know. That raises some of the questions that Jenna raised. And sometimes we say "Ein doch nefesh mikvei nefesh," but sometimes we make other types of cheshbonot, and some of it. So that does become. It does raise different type of a calculus.
I think there was even an additional or different rationale with the ransom, with the payment for the soldiers that were captured in Israel. It had to do with the morale of the. Right. In other words, if you could rely on the dedication of the government to always save us, then our morale as military will not be. Right. We will not be demoralized.
Right. But a lot of people, very obviously, compassionate people were deeply against that because you're freeing all these potential future murderers.
I understand.
All right, so those are the hard questions. Okay, that's exactly what we're dealing with. let's take a look. I'm sorry. You don't basically try to save his captives. What's the difference? What's tikkun olam here anyway? So there's only one. Meaning, is it that if you try to save them and you fail, then they are going to now, if is the concern about what they're going to do to the remaining captives? No, forget you fail. You succeed. Okay, but what are they going to do to the remaining captives? Right? That's tikkun hashvuyim. What the tikkun olam is that if you're able to successfully free this group of captives in the future, they're going to be much more. They're going to have Rashi says them in chains and be much more oppressive and do all these types of things to prevent them. They'll go easy on them if they know that they're not easy, but whatever. Anyway, they won't be as as oppressive if they're not afraid that they're going to be seized back. Okay, so the nafkamina would be if it's about future, then no matter how definite you are that you're going to succeed right here, nobody is going to suffer in the immediate here and now. You're afraid about what the consequences will be in the future. That's takanat olam, is be concerned about the larger picture, the big picture. Takanat shvuyim is right now you're going to do this and you're going to save a few of them.
The guys in the next room.
What are the reprisals that they're going to do to everybody who's left behind? Right? So that's the immediate issue. And so if nobody's left behind, I don't have to worry about reprisals.
Right, that's a chag.
Okay. Bantei Rav Nachman. So now we'll end, I guess, with a very interesting story. Bantei Rav Nachman's daughter, daughters, Bash and Kidei Rabbi Yadayu. They were able to stir a boiling pot directly with their hands. So what was going on there? It was like a nace. So Kashalei Rav Elish didn't understand how could they be so righteous to be saved by this miracle. See, the pasuk says, "Adam echad me'elef matzati." Only 1 out of 1,000 men was I able to find that was righteous. The isha b'chol lo matzati, and a woman certainly, even 1 in 1,000 men, a woman, of course not. So how could that be? Rav Nachman. What about Rav Nachman's daughters? So it seems like there are righteous women out there. Okay, Garna Lahumil. So something once things came about. The Ishtavian. And the daughters were taken captive. And he was taken captive with them. One day he was sitting by a person who could understand the language of birds. Asa Urva, a raven came, the Kokarile, and called out to him, the guy who could, the bird whisperer or whatever. Amalei, he said to him, my kamar, what was that raven saying? Amalei, he said to him, Elish Barach. It was saying, Elish, run away, Elish, run away. Like you can now escape the captives. Amar Urva Shikrahu. Ravens are liars. V'lo samlich na'alei. I don't trust him. Adahachi asa Yona. He wasn't afraid that the guy who understood the language of birds was liars. He was only afraid that the birds were the liars. Anyway, then a certain dove came, the Karkarya, and was calling out. Amalei my kamar. What's the dove saying? Amalei, he said to him, Elish Baruch, same thing. Amar Knesset Yisrael Yona Matila. The nation of Israel is compared to a Yona, to a bird, to a dove, like in Shir Shirin. Shmami Nami Drachshi Linisa. I see that a miracle will come to me if I try to run away. By the way, this points at Tosas's point. We don't try to free captives because of Tikkun Olam. It doesn't mean that the captives are not allowed to run away themselves, right? Sort of like Tosas about you're allowed to redeem yourself. Whatever we're doing for the betterment of the world, you can take care. You can protect your own self first. Okay, so that's how this is fitting in. I mean, that does. Besides this whole thing with the daughters, that's sort of the important story also that you can save yourself. Okay, Amar Izil, he said, "I'll go." Achzei, well, yeah, but we're not up to that yet. Now let me, before I run away, let me go ahead and check out Rav Nachman's daughters who are also being held by these captors. If they've kept the faith, they have not given themselves over sexually to their captors, Adrinu, I'll take them back with me. Amar, and then he said to himself, how am I going to find out how they've been acting? So, Nashi, Komuli the Islu, women, whenever they have some secret to share, Sadrin Lahadadi Bevesa Kise, they, get together in the bathroom, and that's when they share their secrets. So, Shaminu, so he went over.
Nothing more exactly.
Bathrooms were so much more disgusting.
What can I tell you? So he went to eavesdrop by the bathroom. Shaminu, the Kamran, he heard them saying, Adi Guvrin, Vinardai Guvrin. We used to have husbands, and now these Nardim, these are our husbands. So we had those were our husbands before. These are our husbands now. So what's the difference? Let's go tell our captors we should move. We should get further away from where we were, where we had been living until now, before we were taken captive. So our husbands shouldn't find out and they shouldn't redeem us. I like these Nardim. They're much nicer husbands than our old husbands. Let's just try to move away. So clearly they had given themselves over sexually. They had not kept the faith. They were
clearly they're not righteous women. Then.
They're not righteous women.
No, they're not righteous
women.
women.
Well, that's the story.
Can I
right.
just point out what their marriages must have been like that they prefer that situation?
Yes.
There's also they're saving.
Very good point.
So they're also saving themselves.
Well, right, and they might feel right that by giving themselves over sexually and not
They'll have a
resisting, they're given a life and they're not being treated as slaves and they're not being raped and whatever. Exactly. But I think part of the message is that they seem to be it wasn't just a way of compromising. They seemed happy with the situation. They proactively were saying, let's move away from you. Anyway, so that's the story. So they really weren't anyway tzaddikim. So Kam Arak, so he got up, ran away, and he didn't take them with him, obviously. Also Ihu, Vehu Gavra, Vehu Gavra. Now he and that bird listener went with him. He figured, hey, if he's going to escape, I might as well go with him. He's going to be saved. For him, a miracle happened. Avram Avri, he was able to cross over a stream of water and escape from the captors. Who Gavra, that person, they found him, the Katlua, and they killed him. Okay, so obviously this was only a special opportunity given to Rav Elish. Anybody else would have been killed. Right, so maybe if the women would have gone with him, they would have been killed too. Hihadrin v'asin Amar. So when he finally came back, he said, "Now I understand they weren't so righteous. It must be the opposite." That they were actually witches and that they were able to stir the pot with their witchcraft, and that's how they succeeded. So that's a really lovely story to end with.
That is really very lovely.
We will end with that.
What is going on in the story?
The same women who were stirring the pot before the ones.
Those are Rabbi Nachman. So